Today is Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. Michael, where are we?
We're in Yellowstone National Park at Lewis Lake.
We are in Yellowstone National Park. We made it.
Finally. No floods, no fires. We're out here partying, having a good time. We're being a little bit creative and doing something different on this trip. As much as I enjoy doing multiple day wilderness backpacking, I told Amber we would do some single night trips and spend some time checking out the geyser basins and doing some things that we haven't done on our previous trips. So where are we staying tonight?
We're gonna be at Ice Lake tonight.
And what's our plan for today before we head to the trailhead?
Today we're gonna be going to the Upper Geyser Basin and Black Sand Basin. Our main goal today is to see the Morning Glory pool. Michael's never seen that one or any of the geysers that are around it yet.
When we were here last year, we didn't really make a whole lot of time to check out much outside of our backpacking itinerary. And the couple times we had been here previously, I've never really spent time checking out much of the Upper Geyser Basin outside of Old Faithful. So I'm looking forward to doing that and looking forward to doing a different kind of trip. We're gonna have lighter packs, being able to be a little bit more creative with our food, maybe packing in some beer. I think it's gonna be a good time.
I'm really excited for tonight's dinner. We're gonna be having my favorite food in my favorite place. We're gonna have spaghetti in Yellowstone.
Yes!
Spaghetti in Yellowstone.
Right. Again. No. We kind of saw it. We did see it. Yeah, we did see it.
What am I about to do? made it. Here it is.
Oh my God. Here in front of Castle Geyser, we just left the Old Faithful Inn. We stopped and watched the eruption and grabbed some beer and ice cream. Now we're going to check out a couple other geysers on the way back to the car, and then we're driving up to the Ice Lake trailhead.
Tree sap.
We're almost back to the car. How far do you think we've hiked today between these dirt paths and the geyser basins?
We're at around 5 miles, but it feels like 3.
Yeah, didn't really feel like a big mileage day, but we covered quite a bit of ground. Saw a lot. Currently looking at Spouter Geyser. We were here this morning and it was completely full. It's around 6 p.m. We made it to the Ice Lake trailhead, and we've got 0.7 miles to go to camp tonight. It's around 6:20 and we finally made it to camp. I'm gonna start setting up the tent while Amber works on dinner, and we're eating Backcountry Gourmet tonight. Here's a look at Ice Lake from our campsite. It's really pretty, but it's so wooded it's difficult to photograph. This is our first time packing in a frying pan, and we are doing fresh meat and veggies for dinner tonight. How's our trial run with this cook system going?
Pretty well, actually. I have to eat like an animal.
Amber left her backpacking fork at home. So now we have to share. It's around 9 p.m. and by Ice Lake time, that is beer 30. The hike in here was nice, wooded but pleasant. Ice Lake is actually a really beautiful lake, more so than I was expecting. Mixed feelings about this campsite. It is right on the lake. You do have a beautiful view. There's not really a good food prep area that's away from the tents enough for my liking. And the food pole is located across the trail a little bit east of here, and it just kind of sits up on a slope. There's not really a food prep area there. We did have a pretty awesome dinner. No wildlife sightings today, which was shocking. We drove all the way from Grand Teton, and we didn't really travel through a part of the park that's known for big wildlife sightings. We didn't see a single bison, elk, anything really. How'd you feel about today?
Today was a really good day. We got to see a lot of stuff. We covered a lot of ground, I feel like, for the first hike in. We're just really happy to be here.
We saw quite a bit at the geyser basins earlier today. That was fun since we haven't done that in a while. Feel like I got a lot of pretty cool geyser and hot spring footage. So we're back here in Yellowstone, and we've been coming here for a few years now. It's way out of our way to come here from the East Coast, but we love it and we keep coming back. When we made our first trip here, was there a specific moment that you knew you would come back here?
Honestly, yes. From the moment we drove in and we rounded that first corner that had a really big peak, and the emotion that I felt inside when I saw that, I knew that moment that I would want to come here again and again and again, especially after hearing that you will never see all of Yellowstone in your entire life ever. It's like 2 million acres, over 2 million acres.
Yeah, from the roads you see about 2 to 3% of Yellowstone. So that was the moment that you knew that that first trip wasn't a one-time deal. That first time we came here, we did a full cross-country road trip to Arkansas and Texas and Colorado. So there were a lot of stops and a lot of cool stuff, and this was kind of the end point of that trip. And yeah, I was wowed, and we both were. So last year in Lamar Valley, you swore off backpacking forever. And here we are, back in Yellowstone backpacking a year later.
I would say that I swore off long distance, overnight backpacks where you move every single night to a different campground. I feel like it was a lot on me last year, but I mean, I ended up falling in love with it and falling in love with that sense of accomplishment, and I definitely know why people can get so addicted to that.
So that first trip we did in Lamar Valley was your first multi-day wilderness trip. And then once we took a few days to kind of recoup from that one, we did another one out into the Beckler area. Did your feelings about doing those kind of trips change between those first couple nights in Lamar and when we made it to Mr. Bubbles and hiked out of the Beckler?
Yes and no. I was still very much like, I am never doing this again. But that sense of a big accomplishment like that for my very first long distance backpacking trip, like, I was pretty impressed with myself. And I kind of knew on the plane ride home that I was going to be looking into other areas that I wanted to see in the backcountry.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from doing these trips?
That I can handle hard challenges. And I don't give myself enough credit. I am not the kind of person that likes to be challenged physically or mentally. I don't like physically exerting myself. But I think when there's an opportunity to grow from challenging yourself, when it has such an impact on your life in positive ways, I think that that was enough for me to accept more challenges.
While we were sitting there yapping, it got too dark for the camera to continue filming us. So this is gonna be it for night number 1. See you in the morning. Good morning. We made it to day number 2. The plan for today is to pack up and head back to the trailhead, and then Amber's gonna drive me up to Slough Creek where I'm gonna day hike, and she's gonna go spend the day in the Mammoth area. And then after she picks me up this evening, we're headed back to this area, and we're gonna hike in and camp at Grebe Lake tonight. That should be fun. That was the first backcountry site we ever stayed at here in Yellowstone. We also bumped into a couple of day hikers who told us they saw a grizzly at Grebe Lake yesterday. It's gonna be a good time.
This is really good and warm.
It's around 9:20 a.m. Camp is all packed up. We are on our way back to the trailhead, and today we get to drive over Dunraven Pass for the first time in years.
Yes! Yeah.
Just got out of the trees and getting my first look at Slough Creek. How beautiful is this? Right ahead of me in that clearing dead center of the screen, a group of day hikers I passed were looking through the binoculars a while back and told me they spotted a bear there. I've been looking for a while and haven't seen anything moving. It's around 6 p.m. We just made it to the Grebe Lake trailhead. After Amber picked me up from Slough Creek earlier, we stopped at some of the overlooks on the Dunraven Pass Rd. It's been closed for construction for a few years, so it was cool to see some of that again. And then we took a little detour to the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone and checked out a few overlooks there. We've got about 3.3 miles to make it to camp. It's around 7:30 p.m. We just made it to camp. I wish the sun would pop out just a little bit more. The view across Grebe Lake from here is probably one of my favorite views in the entire park. I still love this campsite. It's the first campsite we ever stayed at here in Yellowstone, and it's still one of my favorites. I didn't get a whole lot of footage on the hike in. I'm gonna try to get a few more shots on the way out tomorrow. I'm not certain, but I think that's a coyote causing all that commotion out there. On tonight's gourmet backcountry menu, hot dogs, cold water. So recap of the day while we're working on dinner here. I actually enjoyed Ice Lake quite a bit. It's really pretty. It's a nice camp area to wake up to. How'd you feel about it?
I really liked Ice Lake a lot. It was a really pretty campsite, a really beautiful lake, and I couldn't have thought of a better way to have a spaghetti dinner, could you?
No, having less than a mile hike into camp allowed us to pack in some food that we wouldn't normally be able to, because we didn't have to worry about it spoiling by the time we made it to camp. We pretty much pulled the meat and stuff right out of the cooler and started cooking as soon as we got to camp. So that was pretty cool to be able to do that. It was nice driving the road up over Dunraven Pass when we left camp this morning. That road's been closed for construction for a couple of years, and not only have we missed out on the views, but the last few times we've came here, that road being open would have made our route substantially easier. So I enjoyed that. Finally got to do a little bit of hiking up at Slough Creek. I've been wanting to do that for years. Such a beautiful area. I only got to go about 3 or so miles in, I think, a little bit past the first patrol cabin. No wildlife sightings out there. Really makes me want to try to go back and get a backcountry permit and spend a few days out there. That's such a fantastic area, and you can't really soak it all in during a day hike. Heavens to Betsy, I got dirt on the spatula.
In what ways do you think you have changed living your everyday life after experiencing Yellowstone?
When we first came back from that initial trip in 2019, when we planned that, that was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Like, I never saw us coming back to Yellowstone repeatedly, or really even coming back out west repeatedly at that point. Not because I didn't think we'd enjoy it. It's just I wasn't prepared for the life-changing experience that we had. And pretty much as soon as we got home and recovered from that 2-day car ride with no air conditioning back to South Carolina, I was ready to start planning our next trip. And having been here, we kind of knew some things that we wanted to do and see and explore. And planning the second trip was exciting. And planning every trip we've been on since then, it's always exciting planning to come out here. And even though you know that sometimes Mother Nature's going to throw a wrench in your plans, I mean, that's kind of what makes it fun. Traveling out here and getting back into hiking and camping and backpacking and doing these real wilderness trips, I don't know how that could not be life-changing. And it was coming here and sitting next to a few people at this little cafe in Cook City that were talking about a backpacking trip, and then just driving across Lamar Valley and seeing the trails that just went out into this expansive wilderness. And the curious little kid in me was just wondering where they went. And I've just been dying to find out where every trail in this park goes ever since. My dream hike for Yellowstone would be a big trip into the thoroughfare. That area has always really intrigued me. It's so remote, it's kind of considered the most remote place in the lower 48 states. The fact that it takes 2 to 3 days to get there, and just because of food and logistics, you know, there's no resupply points nearby. You can't really spend a whole lot of time there. It's only accessible through part of the year. Really want to try to plan a trip out there at some point. To do a hike like that and make it worth my while, I would probably need a full 8 days in the backcountry. And it's difficult to schedule that kind of time off work and figure out the logistics. I'm hoping I can make that happen next year. I'm not sure if Amber's up for that big of a trip, so she may be dropping me off and doing a solo adventure around Yellowstone for a week while I'm seeing how deep into the wilderness I'm willing to go.
Yep, you have fun with that. I would die because of bears. What's the top 3 coolest experiences you've had in Yellowstone?
I've had a lot, but there are probably 3 that stand out above the others. The first one that comes to mind was making it to Mr. Bubbles last year. That was a hike that we had been planning and researching and talking about for a couple of years. She and I were both equally excited about it. That's not the case with every hike. Sometimes we do things that are more along the lines of what she wants. Sometimes we do things that are more along the lines of what I want. We try to compromise when we come out here, but that one we were both really chomping at the bit to do. And the fact that it was a couple years building up to it and a couple years really getting comfortable with coming out here and doing that long of a trip, to finally make it there and have most of an afternoon to enjoy it all to ourselves was fantastic. And the group that came in, they were pretty cool to hang out and chat with. We hung out with them for a little bit, and then we headed out so they could kind of have their space and enjoy it.
Yeah, we follow them on Instagram now.
When we saw the wolf hiking out of Lamar Valley last year, the footage doesn't quite do justice to that encounter. When we initially saw him, he was within 20 feet. And you can't plan for or buy that kind of experience. There's no amount of money that can get you that close to a wolf in the wild. It just has to happen by pure dumb luck. And that was the last day of that trip. We hadn't seen any wildlife the entire time. She was having a pretty big emotional moment because she realized that she accomplished something that she thought was beyond her means. And minutes after really sitting down and taking a minute to have that realization, we had that wolf sighting, and just a absolutely incredible moment. Really felt like a gift from nature, as silly as that might sound.
I feel like, remember earlier when I said that I was born in Yellowstone?
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. I feel like I've drug her out on these backcountry trips. I kind of caught the bug a few years before she did, and she's always enjoyed aspects of them, but I feel like in that moment she really understood the why? Why do you come out here for days at a time? What do you think you're going to find that you can't just find hiking in a couple miles and staying at a campground?
Yourself. You find your fucking self.
Yellowstone's a wild place, and if there is a truth about yourself, you will discover it out here, 100%. And then the last one that sticks out was seeing the sow grizzly and the cub outside the east entrance when we were here back in June. Because we couldn't actually officially enter Yellowstone National Park, we spent that week checking out all the national forests outside of the park, and that was cool to be able to do that. We've always loved passing through those areas, so it was cool to spend a little bit more time enjoying them. And because we couldn't do what we wanted to do, I spent a lot of time getting up in the morning and staying out late at night, just cruising up and down sections of highway looking for wildlife. And even for June, really didn't see much until that last night. And I shared the still shots that it happened so quickly I couldn't get video. I was in my car the whole time, but the sow and the cub got within 4 feet of me. I mean, I could smell them. There was a feeling in the air that something was different when they popped out of the woods and crossed the street in front of me. And it was just such an experience. What do you think has been your most exciting or memorable moment in Yellowstone?
If I had to pick the one, I would say it would be seeing the wolf at Cache Creek
Yeah.
in Lamar Valley. It was like being born again in that moment, like really sitting down, and he said, "How many miles have you done?" And I couldn't believe I had actually done that. I really didn't think I was capable of doing anything like that. And, you know, you will definitely find out what you're made of deep in these woods. And I was surprised to find that I kind of dig myself. And when I stood up and I wiped my tears from my face and I turned around and I saw that black wolf staring at me, and his eyes were yellow, and he did not look like even the wolves you see on TV. He was just scraggly and mangy and like just lanky and tall. His legs were so long, and when he kind of trotted along, he bounced, and it was really cool. And he kept stopping and like looking at us, and it was, I really felt like a connection to that place and him and just everything around me at that time. Like I was supposed to be there in that moment, and it was really like a gift from nature telling me like, welcome to yourself and welcome to your new life.
So it made it feel like the journey and the challenge meant something.
It really did. It made it all worth it, and it definitely made me feel like I was supposed to be there.
Is there something in particular that you really want to see or experience out here that you haven't yet?
I would like to come out here in the wintertime. I would like it to almost be unrecognizable, like a whole new place to explore it. And I feel like I would definitely get that out of coming here in the wintertime. I don't think I would want to hike or anything in the wintertime, but I would definitely like to come see what this place looks like covered in snow. And I think that would be really cool.
How do people in your everyday life respond when you tell them about how you spend your vacation?
Surprised, astounded. I've gotten a couple of, wow, I would have thought that about you, which is almost kind of insulting. But I get a lot of questions, and people ask me, so you carry in all of your food, and you sleep in a tent, and what do you do about going to the bathroom, and how do you get water, and do you just go to any campsite that you want to? And then you have to explain like all the details and all the planning we plan a year in advance. As soon as we get home from this trip, we'll probably be, if we weren't moving out here, we would probably be planning next year's trip.
Yeah.
As soon as we got home and trying to map out where we were trying to go. a lot of people don't realize that you have to apply for campsites, and you might not get the campsites that you applied for, and some of those campsites might be a long ways away from the last one. And I think a lot of people, it definitely makes you the coolest person at the party, that's for sure, because people will crowd around you and ask you questions, and before you know it, you are talking, you've got the entire room listening to you and wanting to know about the experience. I think, especially when I'm at work, because I'm a hairstylist, is not something very common within my field for us to be recreational hikers and backpackers and stuff like that. Women in my job are always asking me, well, how do you take care of your hair? How do you shower? Do you shampoo your hair in the lake? Absolutely not. I just don't shower. And they're just clutching their pearls. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You do your bathroom business. How? Like, I would never do that. Well, you'll never experience what I do, and what I've experienced is definitely worth pooping in a hole for a couple of days.
You're completely unplugged from the outside world. Whatever's going on with your job and your school, and arguments with family members or coworkers, or falling out with friends, and your bank account and what happened on TV and the latest Netflix series, you are absolutely removed from that. So far removed, it's not even on your mind for 5, 6, 7 days at a time. And
that's a relief.
That disconnect is a reset that not enough people get to experience, I think. And that's one of the things that I hope people who watch this channel and see these videos get. I want to inspire people to get out and explore on your own and find out what that's like, discover things about yourself, and just experience really disconnecting from the mundane aspects of your day-to-day life. Feel what it's like to walk out of the woods after 5 days and not have thought about the traffic lights you sit in every day, and not have wondered about interest rates or bills or any of it. This is such an immersive experience by its nature. It has to be, for you to come out here and do this successfully. You've got to be all in, and being that encapsulated in something for days on end, when you come out of it, I don't see how people could complete a backpacking trip and not feel like something about them changed at least a tiny little bit. This is going to be a wrap for night number 2. We'll see you in the morning. Good morning. We've made it to day number 3. Last night was interesting. We had quite a bit of wind and rain going on, still sprinkling on us a little bit. And even though we haven't really seen a lot of wildlife on this trip, we heard a lot of it from camp here last night. That was pretty exciting. The plan for today is to hike back to the car, and then we're going to go try to check out Biscuit Basin and the Grand Prismatic Spring Overlook. I haven't been to either of those in a few years. And then this evening, we're hiking into Cascade Lake and spending the night there. It's around 9 a.m. We had a little bit of a mishap halfway through making breakfast. I miscalculated how much fuel we had left, and we ran out. So now we're gonna hike back and cook brunch at the trailhead.
Ooh, brunch. Joy. I'm so excited for brunch.
One final look at Grebe Lake before we get back into the woods. They've got part of the lake closed off to travel, except for right along the trail. And the area they have closed off is where we were told somebody spotted a grizzly a few days ago. About half a mile out from the lake, we crossed a large pile of bear scat on the trail that was not there last night. I actually enjoy this type of landscape. It's quintessential Yellowstone. What doesn't really show on camera very well is all the bits of volcanic rock scattered everywhere. We're probably around half a mile from the trailhead right now. Pretty pleasant hike out this morning. Nothing really exciting going on. The weather's cooled off a bit and the mosquitoes are slightly less horrendous than they were yesterday. I'm starving. I'm looking forward to this brunch. Yeah, your pancakes ain't gonna be good unless you got some Yellowstone dirt and skeeters in them. We just finished up with our brunch. Now we're gonna pack up, clean up our mess, go check out some thermal goodies.
We're at Midway Geyser Basin. We're gonna go check out the Grand Prismatic, and we're not gonna go to the Overlook because I don't want to right now because I'm gonna see it next month when I come back. So let's go.
Here's the view of Grand Prismatic Spring if you don't hike up to the overlook.
This is the one to the falls? Yep.
Yeah, and it has to do with however the plate tectonics are moving, right?
Like, in a good way. And I'm like, I never see people looking at me. I always see people looking at you. She goes,
It's around 6:45 p.m. We're just now getting to the Cascade Lake trailhead. After we checked out the geyser basins this morning, we stopped by Grant Village to make some lunch and then spent a couple hours driving around Yellowstone Lake and Hayden Valley. Another late start, but another awesome day. Thankfully, it doesn't get dark till after 9 p.m.
Go there!
Beautiful meadows on this hike. I know the camera's probably not going to pick it up, but there's a bull moose out in the lake. Right about dead center screen. It's around 8 p.m. We just made it to camp. I really love this hike in here. Gorgeous tall grass meadows with these beautiful hills on the north side of the trail. When we came up on Cascade Lake, we spotted a bull moose across the lake from us. That was pretty awesome. Definitely the most exciting wildlife encounter of the trip. It's been a long day and we're both pretty exhausted, so I think I'm gonna call this a wrap for day number 3. We'll see you in the morning.
Good morning. It is day number 4 and sadly our last day. We woke up this morning to a beautiful sunrise over Cascade Lake, and we're gonna pack up now, make our way back to the trailhead. We have breakfast in our cooler waiting to be cooked by me.
The plan for today is just to stop and enjoy the scenery some as we exit the park. We have to make our way down to Denver tonight for an early flight out tomorrow. Also going to try to stop and see some of Grand Teton, and I'm hoping we can make time to do a proper recap of this trip. We've seen a lot in these 4 days, and there's a little bit more to talk about than what we've gotten around to so far. All right, camp is all packed up and wilderness fun time is over. One last look across Cascade Lake. It's beautiful out here. We've made it back to the trailhead, working on coffee and breakfast at the moment. So I got this frying pan from GSI Outdoors. It was practically the smallest and lightest one I could find. And it's been a little bit tricky, but we've been able to successfully cook using a backpacking stove. It does eat up a lot of fuel, and it probably wouldn't be feasible for multi-day trips, but for overnight trips or picnic areas, it seems to be working for us. And we have been eating good on this trip. It's around 10:45. We just finished up our attempt at breakfast. So the plan for the rest of the day is to make our way back down toward Denver. We're gonna try to check out a few thermal areas and maybe a few viewpoints in Grand Teton along the way. How'd you feel about Cascade Lake?
Cascade Lake, the trail is probably one of my favorite short trails. It was absolutely beautiful. And this morning when we were leaving, like, I started breaking down in tears today. I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to stay right by that rock and look at the lake all day.
Cascade Lake has been on my radar for a few years. We actually have applied for a permit to camp there once or twice before and never lucked out, and that campsite happened to be open this year. The view around there is spectacular though. Glad we finally got to do this hike. Seeing the moose at the lake yesterday was pretty awesome. I made an attempt to get him on camera, but he was too far out, probably 150 yards. After he saw us, a few minutes later, he kind of disappeared up into the trees. And typically when you see those guys, they catch a glimpse of you and they disappear into the woods and you never see them again. Once we made our way up to the tent site, there was a little area you could kind of see down to the lake. And to my surprise, he actually made his way back down to the water, and I was able to kind of watch him up there for a few minutes before it got too dark to see. We've really crammed a lot into 3 or 4 days of this trip. Probably not the ideal travel situation for most, but being that our June trip went all to hell, I really wanted to try to see as much as we could. And it's August, the sun comes out at 6 and it doesn't get dark till almost 10. And we made full use of that. When we did our trip last year, we done a lot of wilderness camping and backpacking and didn't take time to check out the geyser basins and all that. Amber really wanted to do that, and that was why we planned that whole trip in June. And being that we didn't get to do any of that during that trip, we decided to make some time for that this week.
I wanted to take a minute to talk about Soda Butt, because I have a lot of people asking me questions about him. Soda Butt is a stuffed animal that I got a couple of years ago. Actually, the first time we came here from the old Faithful Inn. I had a pet for a very long time. It was a rat named Nillabean, and that pet changed my life. I miss him all the time. I took some of his ashes after he passed away, and I put them inside of Soda Butt so that I could take Nillabean with me everywhere that I went, because he made my life so much better. So that is why Soda Butt exists.
All right, guys, if you've made it this far, this is going to be the end of the trip narration-wise. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
very inactive.
It has to be that deep though.
Ouais, j'ai entendu tout à l'heure. On s'en prend une.
This is the Snake River Trailhead by the south entrance. We are officially exiting Yellowstone.